Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
With the use of phones and screens and social media, it's just taken things to the nth degree, and it has made things harder for parents. I can tell you that just personally, anytime I learn about a new site or a new thing, it's obsolete already. They're 50 steps ahead. It's really hard. It's made everything much tougher.
Welcome to the Parent Footprint Podcast with Dr. Dan. I'm Dr. Dan, your host, and let me tell you about our mission. Our mission is to make the world a more loving and compassionate place, one parent and one child at a time. We believe the key to raising happy, healthy, and engaged kids is for us parents to seek the same in our own lives: happiness, health, and engagement. We firmly believe that awareness is the foundation for your vision of successful parenting. And with increased awareness and intention, we can be purposeful about leaving a healthy footprint on our children. Today's show is called Barbarians at the PTA: Parenting, Psychology, Teens, and Screens. I am happy to introduce you to our guest, Dr. Stephanie Newman, who is a clinical psychologist and psychoanalyst with over 25 years of experience providing insight-oriented talk therapy for those with anxiety, depression, and relationship health and workplace difficulties. She's the co-editor of Money Talks and a regular contributor to the online edition of Psychology Today. Dr. Stephanie is a faculty member at PANI, which is formerly NYU Psychoanalytic Institute, and is a visiting scholar clinical supervisor at Columbia University. She is also the author of Mad Men on the Couch, which was named one of Publishers Weekly's top 10 books in performing arts. And her new book, Barbarians at the PTA, which we'll be talking about today, is her first novel. She has been on numerous media outlets sharing her wonderful work. And most importantly, she lives in New York with her family. Dr. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So in reading about you and your profile and your work, I am just drawn to a fellow profiler, I should say, as a fellow psychologist, and how much your work is so much about people and personality types and everything related, which we're going to talk about. And so a question I always like to ask is, how did you become a psychologist first, and then what led you into wanting to become a psychoanalyst?
Those are interesting questions. I was working in New York City and not loving what I was doing, and also in a long-term relationship that wasn't going as well as I wanted it to. And it was sort of like, wow, who's driving this train? So I had a friend tell me that therapy helped her, and I went to somebody and we talked, and this person happened to be a psychoanalyst, so you can guess how that happened. I found myself on the couch after a while, going more frequently. But as we delved deeper, I realized this is a really interesting field. And then I took a lot of classes. I hadn't studied any psychology, nothing. And I took classes at night after work, and I did some research and did some volunteer work on the weekends, and then did the applications for PhD programs. And I was fortunate enough to get in.
And there you go. And then that began a journey. So tell folks. People hear about psychoanalysis, and I think it has, Woody Allen and other media portrayals of psychoanalysis. There's sort of a stereotype. But please tell everyone, like, how do you describe psychoanalysis and what it does, what that work does for people?
This is one of those moments where it's a shame that you can't see me, because I am a 90-year-old man with a gray beard. And
I've seen your picture. She's not everyone.
But that's the stereotype, right?
Yep.
And I think depending on where you live in the country, probably psychoanalysis is more widely practiced among some, in some places. It was a pretty popular thing on the East Coast at the time that I trained, when dinosaurs walked the earth. And so it does have the Woody Allen stereotype. Really, the American Psychoanalytic is a big organization, and their mission is to explain to people that psychoanalysts really are just like anyone else, and that those principles of understanding yourself or how your mind works, it doesn't mean it's some antiquated, odd thing where you just talk about your mother or you go for 50 years. It really isn't that dissimilar to other talk therapies in regards to wanting to help people, being respectful in the room, making it be safe, belief that the understanding or the relationship with the therapist is helpful, leads to insight or leads to something curative. It's, it isn't that different than, it's certainly different than cognitive therapies, where the focus is, if you change your thoughts, you can change your feelings, or there are other extremes and differences. But I'm eclectic. I will use very practical strategies with people. I don't think anyone wants to come in and just talk with nobody, on the other side, really, or now it's screen, via teletherapy or phone. Nobody wants to just be in a vacuum and get no feedback. That caricature certainly doesn't apply to anyone I know. I'm more active, but I do listen. I do a lot of listening.
And what about just closing this loop, because this is a public service announcement about psychoanalysis, is the other myth is, you got to go like basically 5 days a week, like every day, which can be quite time intensive. What is the modern approach, or the range of the modern approach?
Wow, these are such interesting topics. I'm happy to talk about it. They're going to be so excited at the American Psychoanalytic that someone cares.
I'm just warming us up for the big show. Yeah.
It's certainly become a very hot topic now. It used to be 5 days a week, and I think that it's the modern world. And I think there are people who think you can only get the full effect and the most intensity, and the work in the room can only emerge if you go 5 times a week. I don't know anyone personally that holds to that. I think people believe that with a motivated patient client, with the therapist analyst working really hard, they come to different arrangements. Sometimes it's 3 times a week, sometimes it's 4. Do you use a couch? Do you not? The point is really to have something stick and meet someone at the place they are and allow them to do the work. I wouldn't be a stickler and say that's not analysis because it's not 5 days a week, or I wouldn't, but there probably are. I once heard a story about in Switzerland, the way they voted was they went on the top of a mountain and they held their hands up, in a tiny village. I'm just not holding out for that old fashioned. It's okay. Whatever works for that diet.
Whatever works. Yes. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you. We have not talked about psychoanalysis on the show yet, and I'm glad. I just always like getting information out to our listeners, because there are so many ways to get health, and there's a lot of stereotypes and misinformation out there, and we are all evolving individually, and our fields continue to evolve as time goes on. So, okay, parenting. So here you are, you're a psychologist, you're a psychoanalyst in training, and then a psychoanalyst. And when did parenting become part of your professional repertoire? How did that evolve?
Yeah. So along the training way, I got married, and I would guess I probably started analytic training, which was we did classes on Saturday mornings. That was a big commitment. So you work all week and then you go Saturday morning for
Mm-hmm.
classes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Fun.
yeah, you learn a lot, but right.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
this stage in my life, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm sure I wouldn't do that. And
Yeah.
I think when I was a first year, I had my oldest child, and a first year candidate, meaning I was already a psychologist and already a you know licensed psychologist. So I didn't have a baby during that training, but I did during the psychoanalytic training, which is really you're working in your job and you're also doing this extra thing where you take classes. So you're seeing patients in your practice anywhere, clients, whatever people call it, whichever people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so that's when it happened. And we had a very close core group of people. We met every Saturday for 4 years, and well, I don't mean we met like on Christmas or something, but we met during the school year, Saturdays for 4 years. And I remember hearing that after I gave birth, I was actually at the hospital where the institute was affiliated. And somebody in the class was like, "We should walk over and visit her." And somebody else was like, "No, we shouldn't. Somebody who just had a baby does not want the class to visit her." I would have had them, but I just thought that was a really funny story.
Yep.
That's I guess I hadn't thought about that in a while, but that was the timing. So I was really being a parent at the same time as I was learning to be. I was a young psychologist and learning to be an analyst.
And then parenting as an area of focus. Did you ever think when you went into the field that you would become like one of your main topic areas would be on parenting?
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting how that happens. And I always talk about how I think I was it was so much simpler being a psychologist before kids. And because it's like, it was just so easy to like have judgments about if the parents, and if they just did things differently, then, everything would be fine with their kids. And then you have your own and you realize it doesn't really work that way.
Oh, that's for sure. And where
Yeah.
I thought you were going is if someone wanted an 8 p.m. appointment, sure, or a 7 a.m.
Oh,
appointment, no
true. Yeah.
problem. You're more hamstrung when you have people at home, and you don't want child welfare visiting you because you've left them alone in the house or something. So yeah.
Yeah. So your writings, psychology for people who are going to be looking for more of your resources. So on Psychology Today, you have quite a big following, and your information is spread. Millions of people downloading your work, and there's these major topics these days that are really hitting home, and I know one of them is, which I was really intrigued with, having two teenagers and older, is why teens dress exactly like their friends. And tell us a little bit about that one.
Yes. I'm really interested in the issue of identity. And teens are consolidating their identity. They're trying on new friend groups or trying on new ways of relating, and joining a group is sort of the precursor to going out and starting your own life as an independent person, whatever whatever your family or partnerships will look like, or whatever your work life will look like. So they try on different hats, and the old mirroring function that some psychologists wrote about, and I'm not going to use a lot of psychobabble because no one likes that, but just the idea of what's so great about the early moments between, say, a baby and a caregiver is the baby says, goo, 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 and the tuned-in caregiver says, goo, 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 and looks right back, and that moment of everybody being in tune and the one thing getting mirrored back to show, yes, I heard you, I saw you, I accept you, I think what you're doing is fabulous, and the baby sees that admiration in the caregiver's eye, and they start to build up strength and esteem and feel good. And these are millions of moments. This isn't like a one-time thing or scene in a movie. That's how I see it. I'm sure other people would see it differently. And so that function's so important. And in a way, when they all copy each other as preteens and teens, or can't be different than the group, I thought in a way they're mirroring each other, and that function is so important. I even see adult women do it. The book you're going to talk about with me later,
Yeah.
has all of this. There's no dressing like your friends necessarily, but everybody does derive maybe some sort of feeling of security or belonging or esteem if this is important to them. It's building their image, it's shaping, and those kinds of interactions of, hey, you look just like me, you look good, hey, you look good, wow, I like that. I'm
Mhm.
I'm twinning with you. There's so much use of the word twinning on social media, and people will put up a copy of either a celebrity or a whatever that look like, sometimes a pet and a person. Funny. It's a funny concept, and people view it as a positive. Twinning's not so great from a psychological standpoint, because it's sort of swallowing something whole. You don't want to be
Mhm.
exact. You want to take the aspects of it and then be able to make it your own, like they say on those reality shows where they sing. So you don't want to twin exactly and just be a carbon copy paper doll cutout. But teens or preteens dress like their friends because they want to not just fit in, but I think it's consolidating their identity. It really helps if they have the right sneaker, if they look exactly like it, and then the person approves of them and they approve of the other person. I think it's sort of like what goes on with the teensiest babies and toddlers.
Mhm. Mhm. So developmentally, it's normalizing. I get like this is part of development, and we all know that, especially during adolescence. A big stage of identity development. Who am I? Where do I fit? Where do I belong? Try this on,
Yeah.
and so this is a part of the process. The fitting in, and would you say it's a normal part of the process, and the goal is then to form this healthy identity of what parts do you like, and what parts do you don't you like, and who am I?
Definitely. I think that's how I see it. So I think it's healthy. I think the peer group becomes super important during adolescence. This isn't my idea. I've heard a lot of people say this. But the parents are still important, the family is still important. But yes, being part of the group, and then they all do similar things or look a similar way. It's often it's also very interesting. People have asked a lot, and maybe they ask you this too. How do you know if something's not right with your kid? And if all of a sudden their
Hmm.
appearance changes drastically or their friend group changes drastically, you should be asking some questions.
Hmm. And of course, they always want to give you the answer, like an open book, right? Like
Oh,
this is the this is the such the challenge of this dance with teenagers is providing that the go away, come closer. Like they want space, but they also want us to pay attention and to be there. And walking that line of pay attention to me, but get away from me can be really challenging for parents in these situations.
it's true. You've nailed it. And so many people feel rejected. And I tell them that it's not personal. Your kid is trying to separate. They love you. Just
Hmm.
tolerate it and don't be reactive, and somehow don't be withholding and withdraw. That's the worst thing you could do when your kid pushes you away. You sort of have to show that you're there at a distance. Use humor if you have to.
Hmm. Yeah, humor, and big proponent of humor, and also I found taking big, deep breaths instead of saying what's in my mind is really effective, or for not making a situation worse than it needs to be.
It's such a important thing, and not always so easy to achieve if you're the parent.
Hmm. And the other thing you're making me think of is how many times these conversations happen in my office, which is it does feel, you said it does feel so personal, and so much of the time the kids' behaviors, the teens' behaviors, like it's parents to be surprised with how little that young person is thinking about them. Like the behavior has, like, do you see what they're doing to me? It's like they're not doing anything to you. They're like trying to live their life and not even actually considering you much of the time, which is where there's some disconnect. But it's trying to create that space and to really have that empathy and compassion for this growing human who is just trying to figure things out, and often things are confusing, and there's a lot of stress that goes with the process.
Absolutely true. And the teenagers, it's not intentional. They're in their own bubble. Almost seem like people love now to talk about narcissism. It's become sort of fascination for the public. Teens seem like these narcissists because there's just not such an awareness of the other, and they don't mean it in an aggressive way, even though parents sometimes feel very hurt. I really try to tell parents to not get hurt by them. Like you said, give them the space. Of course, they can't be disrespectful or burn down the house, but maybe they soil the nest a little, and then you let them go away, and they go away. But they do need you to show that you're still there, even if it's from afar. And teens that come home from college or boarding school and they've been away, they still need to be parented. They don't want to be, but they do think.
Yeah, they don't want to be. And a lot of college students are either home or coming home after living away, and it's something that we really need to be aware of too. Is that the autonomy that has been created with the opportunities that children have been provided, or now teenagers, young adults, and then how do we again walk that line of guide and setting healthy boundaries while also giving that space for these young people to continue to grow.
Yes. Well put.
So, this show, as you and the listeners know, has a lot to do about self-awareness and how our increased awareness can positively impact not only ourselves, but our children, and how we live our lives and how we raise our children. And your book is a perfect, I love this. Go into your book, Barbarians at the PTA. Your book has been described as Desperate Housewives meets Mean Girls. Now, that is intriguing from multiple perspectives, because we know that there are many lures to the multiple Desperate Housewives shows and lives and characters. And also, Mean Girls has been something that's been around for a long time, and not just with teenagers, with adults as well. And so, tell us about, actually, before we start the story, tell us how the story came to be from you.
Well, and I was also thinking that I could add some of the people involved in the recent Varsity Blues college scheme. It's sort of like the caricature of the over-involved parent. If the moms from Desperate Housewives, the people from the Varsity Blues college scandal, and the cast of Mean Girls, or the characters of Mean Girls, all moved en masse to your street, that would be the book.
That's the trifecta right there. That's a powerful combination, and really an image, a lot of imagery of what's going on in our culture these days.
So how did it evolve? And also the book has some serious things because you just can't escape who you are. I am a psychologist. I'm a psychoanalyst, but the book is supposed to have some funny. I understand people think it's funny too, and it's supposed to be a light. It's supposed to be a light read. So what basically happened was a number of years ago, I do some teaching where students come that are learning to be psychologists, and they sometimes medical residents, and they read notes from their sessions. So between that, hearing notes from people's sessions, and just observing things with my own eyes, and getting calls from friends in other countries or across the nation, whatever, I meant to say the other coast. And
yes.
Wherever I was at the kitchen table, I kept hearing the same story. And I thought that some parents were really over-involved. And I have empathy for people who you see your child suffer and there's nothing worse and you would like to fix it. But at the same time, to me, empathy really involves being able to step in and share the feeling and feel it, but also be able to step out because you know it's not yours. And what I started to notice was wherever I heard this in the cases I was supervising, in the stories I was hearing, from friends in different places, whatever I saw, there was a lot of over-involvement and hovering and not so much stepping out or mirror looking. And the collateral damage can be tough to kids if parents are so involved. So I thought, wow, and it was very hard for the people who were dealing with this. And I thought this is a real opportunity to start a conversation in a fun way, because really, if you do it in a dry paper for the profession, 300 people will read it and nod their heads. But I just thought this could be fun. And it was a personal challenge for me to write a novel. I thought that would be fun too.
You've maxed out your 401k, you're contributing to an IRA, and making some other investments. You're ahead of the game and doing well. But where do you go from here? The same old story can only get you so far. If you want a new take from a new type of financial professional, we invite you to get a fresh perspective beside an agent with the backing of New York Life. Insurance, investments, retirement, and more. Visit NYL.com to learn more. Investments are offered through registered representatives of NYLife Securities, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC, a New York Life company.
This episode is brought to you by Global X. Since 2008, Global X ETFs has been committed to empowering investors with unexplored, intelligent solutions. Global X specializes in exchange-traded funds that offer exposure to the artificial intelligence ecosystem, including themes like data centers, robotics, semiconductors, and cloud computing. To learn more about Global X's entire suite of ETFs, from covered calls, fixed income, emerging markets, and more, visit globalxetfs.com.
Este episodio es presentado por Honda. Descubra la nueva Honda Passport Trailsport todoterreno. La Passport más todoterreno que Honda haya imaginado jamás. Esta Passport cuenta con mayor altura al suelo, barras de techo en todas sus versiones y neumáticas especialmente diseñados para cualquier terreno. Además, disfruta todos tus viajes con el control de clima de 3 zonas, techo panorámico y opciones como asientos delanteros con calefacción y ventilación. Conoce más en honda.com/passport.
So give us the quick synopsis about the main character, because I know that there is an evolution where the main character has to make some pretty tough decisions, right, about her life situation, her reputation, and standing up in a sense for her child.
That's true. I as I said, very interested in identity. The main character is a psychologist and single mom, and she has a 5th grader, and they move for various reasons have to move out of the city. They move, and they're the outsiders in this very small suburb, and trying to fit in. The kid tries to fit in with the other kids. The mom tries to meet people to fit in with the other moms, and has to help her daughter navigate some different scenarios involving social media, involving cliques, involving her own development as a kid, becoming an older kid, trying, and it brings up a lot in the mother too. Funny situations where she's at work and maybe running into patients at the grocery store in her gym clothes or whatever, but also because it's a small town. But also not so funny situations where you can't run around fighting with other parents all the time as much as you might want to. You have to let your kids solve some things for themselves. So she has to struggle with how involved to get, and when to say something, and when to let the kid deal with it. And of course, if there's real danger, you do get involved. But this is fiction. This is all made out. So,
so I guess that the character figures this out in a way that you think that a parent might go about this tough situation, or does the character depart from how you would suggest your adult clients deal with these sorts of situations?
Well, when I was writing it, and to write a novel, you do 80 or 90 million drafts and throw them away because they're terrible, and then it evolves over time. It's fun though if you like that. I think. Had one early draft of a therapist mother, just worrying. And there was about 150 pages of her worrying about, and somebody said to me, like, something has to happen. You have to have a plot with events. So, okay, she can't just sit and worry. Because parents really do worry, and they really want to help their children. And I just want to, I said it was fiction. Also, I was part of the PTA. I volunteered. I have enormous respect for parent volunteers. It's just a very good title to let people know this will be about wars in the sandbox, PTA
Mm-hmm.
moms, if people just know. And so when you asked, was it how a mom would handle it, or is she going off the rails? There's there's a challenge with how to really meet some pretty scary scenarios head on to protect your child, do it in an appropriate way, also have your practice or your reputation. You can't just go around saying anything that pops into your head, sort of what you said. You'd love to tell your kids off, sometimes you don't do it. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, would a psychologist mom handle things a little bit differently? How a psychologist mom handles parenting is one of the hooks, or the types of things that this book brings up.
Yeah, and it's such a. I mean, this is going for all of us parents these days with screens and cyberbullying. We used to have regular bullying, which was a little more observable. Now things are less observable. This is a gender stereotype, so I'll run this by you. That often that girls and women can be so much more subtle in their bullying, where boys and men are thought to be much more direct.
Mhm.
Do you find that being valid from your experience?
Yeah, I would say, right before I respond directly, the generation of parents like right before me, and I think maybe you, I think we're similar, but uh, the kids didn't have social media and they didn't have phones, and
Mm-hmm.
once that was introduced, well, that just was game changing. I think now this generation of parents that's a little bit younger is going to have the pandemic and all the online schooling
Right.
be game changing. So just to respond, I just want to put it in the context of girls in this book, and the parenting I hear about is different than the bullying, the Charles Atlas, like old stereotype, kicking sand in the face or knocking books out of
Right.
the hand. I mean, that's
Right.
really old. With the use of phones and screens and social media, it's just taken things to the nth degree, and it has made things harder for parents. I can tell you that just personally, anytime I learn about a new site or a new thing, it's obsolete already. They're 50 steps ahead. It's
Mm-hmm.
really hard. It's made everything much tougher. So, and girls
Yeah.
are more subtle, so they use social media
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
really know that many stories of young boys or teenagers who are on social media for the purpose of bullying. They're more interested in playing Fortnite or whatever they play, or if it's younger, maybe the PlayStation, or and they're more interested in, um, you know, talking to each other. Maybe they don't want to talk to certain people, but it's not that, so they don't want to do the game with certain people, but it isn't exactly the same as really the way a girl would do it. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and to your point, having many clients who are really into Fortnite and other related games, it's more in the moment of the meanness, and you're not part of our campaign, and or not being invited to the campaign.
Mhm.
So there is more of that isolation, but it seems like it might not be as much of the really, like, I don't know, just the direct harm, like bullying. We have to highlight this point about how harmful being bullied, and especially being chronically bullied in public, virtual public, how harmful that is for identity development, particularly during the teenage years.
Heartbreaking.
Hmm. Hmm. And as a parent, it can be quite in a powerless situation, particularly when you know something's going on, but you don't know exactly what, and you can't get access. And then, secondly, what do you do about it? Like, how do you step in without making it worse?
That's what this whole book is about, Barbarians at the PTA. So I'm glad you framed that way. It's hard. Parents really do want to help. And it's true that if they go around, certainly if they say something to the other kids, well, that's the kiss of death. If
Hmm.
they fight with the other parents. And there's the whole other issue of the more you step in, you think you're helping your child. I've seen it. I don't know if you've seen in your practice. It's really sad, and it's very interesting. If the parents rush in and fix it all the time, it feels good for, for a while, and then that child goes off to school and they cannot navigate. They really, that's the bad thing about the helicoptering that, we,
Right. Right.
so you do have to, you cannot let a dangerous situation go on. And this, you might want to get the school involved, but but at the same time the kid has to try to navigate it on their own.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, and what do you suggest then from a parenting, like if you're parenting your teenage child who's experienced this to reduce cyberbullying, to handle it themselves? I mean, I know you've written a piece on this, which is what are the ways to stop cyberbullying or reduce it once it's started?
Yeah, I guess it depends on a lot of different factors. It depends on who's in the community. Is it the school community? Is it a small town? Is it a bunch of kids in chat rooms or playing Fortnite? You would want to be specific to. You try to understand where bullying comes from. Bullying often comes from a place of insecurity. They're trying to deal with something. In a perfect world, you would be able to help the bully with whatever they're going through, family problems or some real wound, right? And then maybe they'd stop bullying. But that's something like maybe a Disney movie, so that probably doesn't happen. And also, it's very hard to it's hard to know what's going on. You might just see that your kid is up not sleeping or getting a stomach ache.
Hmm.
It's so
Hmm.
often not clear. You have to get
Hmm.
to the bottom of it. There's a whole thing about, do you check your child's phone? Of course, it
Right.
depends
Right.
on the child's age, but when we got phones for our children, we said this is going to be something and when they're young, and I'm talking about maybe sixth grade or 12 or whenever they get their first
Hmm.
phone, you we will be checking it. I'm not reading every message. I'm not looking over your neck. Do you do that for a 16-year-old? No, but if you notice, as I said in passing, that your 16-year-old isn't sleeping or eating, has dyed their hair a different color and also seems unhappy and has no friends all of a sudden, or a different friend group, or their grades are bad, or you notice something, then it's time to find out what's going on. And
Hmm.
it's hard to stop bullying. You would want to get the school involved. If it's cyberbullying, sometimes there's an issue of, has bullying occurred on school grounds? If they're at the school and they're texting, mean texts. We used to write a note, so and so likes so and so, and humiliate the person or something that
Right.
they like
Right.
boy
Right.
or. But now they might there's group text, there's sexting, which is a whole other thing. But even
Yep.
on a lower level, maybe they say, they innocently say, could you let Allie know that that whatever the boy's name is, Dylan broke up with so and so. And then what happens is Allie looks like she likes Dylan, but she doesn't. And then everyone makes fun of her for liking Dylan because they told her to text about Dylan breaking up. If that was probably very garbled, if that makes sense. Like, pass this message on, and then what happens is the kids going around texting people because they think they're getting this good gossip, or the popular people are letting them in on something, and then what they're really doing is exposing themselves and looking like they like this boy, and then everybody starts making fun of them, or they take their phone and they send messages like that with it. I don't know if this is making
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the phones introduce a whole new thing, and kids are clever. They know how to use it. They know how to do it. It's hard so you try to get the school involved, is what I was saying. The school administration. No school wants bullying. It's really
No.
what can be done about it. If the bullying's occurring at home, you know, the school's not able to say, well, those messages that someone's sending from their bedroom are under, I believe it's not under their purview. I'm not giving you legal. that wouldn't be something I could do right now at all. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that that's the case. And so then if something's really going on where somebody's really targeting a child and their health and well-being is, and the school can't do anything, you probably have to get the authorities involved.
Mm-hmm. And you're just reminding me of a flashback. Is we had to do that with one of our kids in middle school, and seems like years ago, and really we had to do both things, and it was so impressive how it was investigated and nipped right away, and even with keeping the confidentiality of the person who was doing the bullying. I mean, everything was kept with complete I know it doesn't always go like this, but this was one where we felt we had to step in because of safety issues, and everyone responded. So this is the tough situation for anyone listening is, again, we don't want to go in automatic rescue mode. We want to be very the point is to be thoughtful about your situation, your child's situation, the context, and really think about how to, yes, protect your child if there's imminent danger, but short of imminent danger, like what's the different ways to go about this so we're not just stepping in and seemingly solving a problem, but creating more problems, and also not supporting that self-efficacy and that growth of being able to with support, figure the situation out.
It's a delicate balance.
Mm-hmm. It is. So people are going to have to read the book to see how Mom Victoria dealt with it, and especially how Rachel dealt with this new situation that she was dealing with. And what would you leave with regard to the book? What's the teaser that you would leave people about this Desperate Housewives meets the college scandal meets the Mean Girls?
Well, there's also a good romance angle, and I had a lot of fun, and I had to learn to write romance and other things that go along with romance. So that was fun. And so people, if they want to see what happens to a mom who's trying to date in a small community and work and raise a child, and also the mother-daughter relationship, and also thinking about identity and how to parent and how kids and cliques and bullying and screens. It's just got a lot of the over-involved parents, and it does have a lot of themes that we're talking about that have to do with what people are going through today. Everybody is dealing with social media and the impact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the power of social media is so tremendous. It's influenced political elections. It's influenced campaigns for selling goods. If there's a social media blackout and people get really mad if you advertise something, you shouldn't be talking about luxury goods when there's a major social issue and everybody's screens are dark. And, social media just is really powerful. And I think that that's another thing that, that comes through.
Yes. So many relevant issues that I think we want to read about in other people so we can make sense of it in our own lives. And it's nice to read about others and watch these shows for us to make sense of this and be entertained at the same time, because we do have to laugh and keep our sense of humor during challenging times.
It's supposed to be an escape, the book, and a beach read, or just like a holiday, read if you're home for a few days during the holidays or whatever. It is supposed to be an escape.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, before we learn more about where you can get this book, it is time for that question, the Parent Footprint Moment question. Okay. Are you ready, Dr. Stephanie?
I am ready. Do I win $1 million? Because that voice sounded like it was a really exciting climax of a game show.
You know what? Maybe. Tell us about a time when you became aware of yourself as an individual or as a parent, and that new awareness had a positive impact on your child.
Okay. So 2 young children, my children and I, were going apple picking. Really fun, really great, out in the sun. Everything is nice. And I see out of the corner of my eye 2 boys, one of whom seemed to have a lot of challenges and was making sounds and rolling around. And it was heartbreaking for me I couldn't tear my eyes away. The parent, unfortunately, was really struggling with the child with the challenges and name calling and humiliating the child. It was very, very sad. And the sibling there tried to step in and said, "Don't be mean to him, please." And I don't know these people. I'm picking apples.
Mm.
And I thought, okay, that's just so sad. And it bothered me for the whole time. And so the parent had been calling names and really using curse words and humiliating the other child, unable to tolerate, I guess, that the child was struggling or that had special needs. I don't know. And we get to the checkout and I see them again. And what happened was the sibling who had stuck up for the child that was with the challenges, who the child had been rolling down a hill and making sounds and just not able to do the apple picking activity the way other people were. So the sibling that said, don't call him a, I don't even want to say the words on a podcast. Don't call him a this or a that. Don't use the don't use the
Yes.
words, Dad. The sibling then, after the cashier counted something wrong, and the sibling said something to the cashier the sibling who had stuck up for his brother said, like, basically a similar insult, like, "You don't know what you're doing. You can't get through the day without doing something stupid." And
Wow.
it clicked where I thought, oh, this poor kid, these two kids and this overwhelmed parent, kids are watching our every move.
Mm-hmm.
And we are supposed to model reasonably good behavior as best as we can. And they will learn from us when we don't know they're learning. And I thought, okay, I'm not perfect. My God, everyone's flawed, but I'm going to really try to show my best side, or to not, do whatever things I don't want them to copy. And there's a thing. Would you be okay if your grandmother saw you do that so and so? So I sort of thought that was my footprint. I'm not if I wouldn't want my grandma to see this, I'm not trying not to do it in front of my kids.
That is such a powerful story and image. I mean, the idea that you have the sibling defending their sibling against a parent who's being verbally abusive, and then to turn around and emulate that abusive parent's verbally abusive behavior to a shop clerk. I mean, there's no greater image of the transmission of parenting behavior than right there.
Yeah, it was really sad. It really bothered me. So you said it much better than I did.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's and how much that impacts your kids, right? To have that awareness right there. So Dr. Stephanie, thank you so much. There were so many areas that I wanted to dive in. We tried to hit a bunch of them. Of course, I mean, your work is vast, and right now is this book, which is something that is so relevant to our times, will make us laugh, will make us think, and hopefully improve our own awareness. Tell everyone where they can not only get your book, but find all of your other works as well.
Sure. I always ask people, please go to independent bookstores in your neighborhood because they're struggling with the pandemic. So I am sure you could request the book at any independent. Some have it, but you could request it wherever you are, or online. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, other places. And my work, my website is Psychotherapist Next Door, psychotherapistnextdoor.com, and other social media things would just be my name, Stephanie Newman. And the Psychology Today blog is all on there, and other things, other books I've written are on the website too.
She's everywhere, everyone. You can't miss their stuff. Dr. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your experience and knowledge with us.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. It was a really, really interesting discussion. Talking to a psychologist parent who is living through it too. It was really a fun way to get at it. Thank you.
Awesome. My pleasure. Everyone, thanks for listening once again today. Please tell others about the show and subscribe so we can keep spreading the word and joining our mission about making the world a more loving and compassionate place, one parent and one child at a time. Be the person you want your child to become. And remember, as Dr. Stephanie said, they're always watching. They're always listening. They're always learning from us. As always, I will leave you with the guiding question: what footprint do you want to leave?